Oh, okay. So who's helping us with IT tonight?
You should be able to share now.
Oh, awesome. And who am I talking to?
And this is Andy. I'm here.
Andy, what's up, Andy? Thanks for helping us out again.
Is there just the one comment period, or two, maybe one at the beginning, one at the end, or?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how we left it last week. If we've got calls right at the beginning, we'll do that. Then people are listening and trying to participate, and then we can listen again kind of at the end.
Just making sure it's nothing crazy like some of the commission meetings that have like 4 comment periods that we have to pay attention to. So just making sure. I have to ask.
No, so should be good. Thanks. So what's my sharing? Sharing. All right. So I did send out the agenda to everybody. The one. Well, let's get to the agenda in a second. Did I see another jump in? Bobby Glasser is an excused absence tonight. Bobby's continuing to have to take care of some personal business with his family. Oh, Rob's here. What's up, Rob?
I just want to point out that we are not streaming.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's the next thing on the agenda here. So are we live streaming on the Facebook?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I was able to send the agenda out on Monday. I made one change to it since the copy you saw. I added Jean Talanda is here from the city to talk to us about the Wellhead Protection program. And I put her right at the beginning of our unfinished business here. Any comments, questions, anything for the agenda, or are we good to go? I see some thumbs up. All right, so is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Cool. I think that was a second from Ian. All in favor, please give me a thumbs up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with me. Okay, cool. And then meeting minutes. So I sent out the draft meetings from minutes from March. And I think I dropped the ball last month. We talked about you guys get a chance to see the minutes, and then I'll give you a week or so to send me any corrections so that I can send those along to city staff to get those finalized and put into the shared drive. But I didn't see any corrections. I couldn't find the emails I got with corrections to the February minutes. And now it's been a while. So if there are still any corrections to the February minutes, please send those along. And also take a look at the March meeting minutes. But with the caveat that I'll send along any corrections that anybody has. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes for March?
I had a small correction for March, probably not February, but yeah, I'm moved to approve the minutes from March.
And you'll send those in an email?
I already did, yeah.
Oh, awesome, great. I must not have checked it yet.
I will second, and I saw one just small thing that needs to be corrected, so I'll try to send that along too.
Okay. Great, thanks. And then Amber Jane, I'll try to do a better job of sending those along by the end of about a week from now. And then, all right, so that's minutes. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes for February and March? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, meeting minutes are approved. Okie dokie. Any announcements?
It's Earth Week. There's all sorts of things going on for that, including Kalamazoo Earth Day. That I'll figure.
The famous garlic mustard pull that the Asylum Lake Preservation Association is sponsoring along with the council, management council. And we have 2 days of opportunity. May 1st, 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock for 10 to 12, 1 to 3, and May 8th, 10 to 12, 1 to 3. Those are the 2 Saturdays, first 2 Saturdays of May. The registration has to happen because of COVID. We have to know who's coming and let people know what they need to have checked off on the list before they get there. So the whole process is very quick and simple, and it's on the website of the Asylum Lake Preserve. And I should have that right here with me, but I don't. But if you look up the Asylum Lake Preserve website, not only is it beautiful, but you can volunteer for this project. Get outdoors and do some good for the preserve. Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. And I did send, I did share the web address for the ALPA website in the last email that I sent. So, but if you are still looking for it, please send me an email. I can send it to you again. Sharon, can you tell me again? I'm sorry, Sharon, can you tell me again what was the name of the website?
KalamazooEarthDay.com. There's some virtual events with that. I know there's also events via the Kalamazoo Climate Coalition group as well.
Okay. All right. And who else? Any other announcements? All right. Well, if that is it for the announcements, Andy, do we have any citizen input?
Not at this time.
Okie dokie. All right. Jean Talanda is here from the city. Some of you may have remember Jean from back in the old days when we got together in person in the same room. So she is here to give us an update on the Wellhead Protection Program Committee.
Well, I wanted to ask, is there anything in specific that anyone had a question on? I mean, we have a ton of things happening. As you know, our Wellhead Protection Program is also combined with our Stormwater Protection Program and all of our permitting. So our outreach and all of our efforts are combined. And we are exploding on a number of really great things that are happening with the city in getting the utilities together and so forth. But is there any specific topic that anyone had a question on? Can we start with that? No?
Would that category be related to, I'm trying to find an old message, the diverted, I think I'll wait. I need to get my question right.
Okay. Well, I'll start out with Wellhead Protection.
I'm sorry, Jean, I was waiting to see if anybody else did have a question.
Okay.
So the 2 questions I would have is what connection is there to the Wellhead Protection Program and sewer, the stormwater, runoff system? What connection is there to that and the issues that we're having with the Kalamazoo River? That's one. And number 2 is Director Baker came to speak to us in the fall about a very ambitious project to try to mitigate flooding. So I'm curious if that, and very costly project to mitigate flooding. So I'm curious what connection there is with the Wellhead Protection Program. And, my understanding with that big project that Director Baker was talking about is that that really should be pretty high on the agenda here with the ECC, and I'm just curious what we can do to help with that.
Well, I know that what he's working on is a really significant project and would require a tremendous amount of pre-planning as well as funding, and all of that, as you know, is quite complicated. So I'm not directly involved with that. I do provide James service, you know, in helping him and his contractors and things like that. But that's kind of James's specialty. He's the flooding guru, and so. But we are doing a number of things. We had a stormwater and wastewater a grant, which is now done with as of last month. It was over 2 years putting together and updating all of our stormwater assets as well as wastewater. For stormwater, that's pretty significant because stormwater is a completely unfunded utility, in that, you know, no one pays any fees for it. So it's generally been in the past, especially with the unfortunate budgets that we haven't had for the city, it's been neglected. And so we are really pushing hard to bring stormwater up to speed. So we now have an entire new database. Granted, we have a lot of improvements on the database and a lot of information we need to update, but we now have this tremendous database that we are putting on our GIS system. We're getting things GPSed in. We're going in and we're doing risk analysis on our piping and structures and so forth. So tying that into what James is doing, we have done a couple studies in the downtown area, as well as on the north side where they're experiencing what people would call flooding, but it's what we're calling surcharge. It's not actually due to flooding conditions. It's due to undersized piping that's very, very old, or mismatched piping. So they may have repaired some of it in the 20s and another part in the 60s, but it doesn't all fit well together and it wasn't well planned at the time. So it's really what we call surcharge. It is just simply under capacity piping structures. So we're doing studies on that. And although, like I said, we're unfunded, we are putting together plans on how we can move forward. Maybe someday in the future, if it's possible, we might be able to have fees to help with the stormwater. But right now that's not feasible for a variety of reasons that James could talk to you on. But the fact of the matter is we have all this effort into, you can't solve a problem if you don't know what it is. So that's what we're at. We are trying to find out what are our problems. We are mapping them, and we are going out and we've created this whole new database, as well as tying it into the city's what we call the work order program. So that if somebody is, you know, maybe from roads or public services or some other department has to open up a manhole for stormwater, they can immediately on a tablet in the field do what we call a criticality analysis. That simply tells us information about the construction and the condition of the stormwater assets. And as we build that database, then we can plan for the future, as well as try to find breaking points that, you know, could fail sooner than we would like. Let's put it that way. And so in terms of the stormwater, how that impacts the wellhead protection is that, you know, our well fields are specifically planned to be next to waterways. Spring Valley, El Sabo has the West Fork of Portage Creek, Central is right next to Axtell Creek, and it goes on and on. But that's to induce the surface water by our pumping to recharge the aquifer, so we have a plentiful water supply. So we are conducting one study and maybe a second one possibly coming up, where we are looking at the surface water quality. The study that we're working on right now that we're a year into is the Spring Valley Lake, and it will go on until the end of this year. Our preliminary results have revealed the condition of the lake. It's in fairly decent condition. It does have some issues with sodium chloride, as do many of the little local lakes around here. And we're looking at it with Western. We're paying them, one of their professors and a master's student, to do this study. It's pretty thorough, and it will allow us then to manage that area and to see the interaction between the surface water and the effect on our groundwater. So in areas like Central, that is a flooding zone, some of these factors are very important. There's been more work done on Central because it's down in that flood zone than any other part of our well field system, because it's our first well field ever. So it's been there a long time, and it's large. It's the greatest producer we have, and it runs pretty much 24/7. So that's what I can tell you about the flooding is in terms of tied to wellhead. So places like Spring Valley are not in a flood zone, but you get other areas where that is an issue. It's a variety. We have 16 active well fields and a couple that we have turned off, at least temporarily, due to the suspicion that there is PFAS in the area. Does that help at all?
My question. I was curious if you knew things related to the firefighting foam spill at the airport that just was in the news on April 7th, causing the PFAS spike at the wastewater treatment plant.
I am not directly involved. Yes, I know about it, but that is being handled by our wastewater division, because that spill ended up going to the wastewater treatment plant. So that I'm in the water resources division, and I know that they are handling it. They're doing a tremendous amount of sampling to try to see how the levels are coming down and how to treat it. So I can't speak in specifics, only very general things, because I'm not actively in that. Does that make sense? Melissa would probably know more than I do on that topic. Now I am familiar and have been mapping out the PFAS at the airport that was known before, when they were simply investigating it to see if they had used PFAS containing firefighting foams. And that, I have to say, from the results that we have seen in some of the residential wells around there, they are finding it, but it is not in large concentrations, and most homes pass the state's criteria.
Yeah, do you have any kind of numbers for some ideas for those, what the rates are?
For that, just the generic PFAS study at the airport?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ones, around there.
Oh, well, some of the concentrations are really low, like 8 parts per trillion is the standard for, I can't remember if it's PFOA or PFOS. I always get the two mixed up. One is 16 and one's 18. So I think we've only had like 1 or 2 exceedances on those numbers. And so they're really low. Like, I can't tell you, I really just can't remember offhand. I see a lot of contaminant data and concentrations every day. So remembering the specifics, no, but it's very low. We haven't found the smoking gun, let's put it that way. If there is one, I should say.
So Jean, you mentioned kind of undersized and old pipes on the north side of town. So is some of that piping being replaced?
We are actually waiting for the final study. And right now we are, after we had this large stormwater and wastewater grant to help us, bring our utilities up to speed and our databases up to speed and go in and do some of these risk analysis on our piping. The next phase of that is getting the studies in. Stormwater did not get the amount of attention, I'm going to say, that wastewater got, or some of the other bigger utilities. But the next step is we start organizing where are the priorities and how do we mix those with the priorities of, let's say, a road replacement, where they can go in and easily fix all pipes all at once, or working with, say, MDOT or the road commission. We're kind of at that point where we're going to try to get all of our data collaboratively together to plan to be more efficient in how we replace things, so that we don't have MDOT going and tearing up the road, this year, and then the road commission tearing it up next year for their utilities. And, you see the pattern. We're trying to be more efficient, and that's the next phase that we are in. And they call it horse trading, where you sit down and you figure out who's got what priorities and how, what's the overlap where we could focus on and get more done with the bang for the buck, so to speak.
Okay.
Do you know if there have been conversations with either Jamie or whoever else is involved in the sustainability plan? Because that sounds exactly like something that should be included in a plan like that, especially when it comes to flood management.
I know that James Baker is, and he's the start of flood management. He's the top, but I haven't spoken with Jamie in a while. I've kind of been out of that since we don't see each other. Like, I work home 3 days a week because I'm one of the few people who can. I don't get to see a lot of the people anymore. It's really kind of makes it more difficult because you miss that kind of interaction where you have those discussions.
Sure.
But I mean, it's something we could talk about.
Does that mean there's not like standing meetings or something? Because I'm not aware of exactly what her process has been for developing the plan. So just trying to get your side of it as well.
Yeah, I feel like we're all kind of separated a little too much from, what I'd like to see happen.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Because I have a lot of other things I could mention if you like. Or I can just be quiet too instead of taking up all your time.
No, that's all right. Maybe when you're done with your presentation, Melissa, if you've got any updates on PFAS monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, our lab doesn't do the analyses, so anything that is through contract, we do the sampling in the department, but I'm not really in those conversations either.
Okay.
My manager gets results, and then they all have the discussion of what to do next.
Yeah, Melissa, if I recall correctly, the part of the issue was that it requires such like sensitive instruments or something that it's either done. So it's contracted with a company or with like the state?
It's a laboratory in California.
Oh, that far away. Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's parts per trillion.
It's a pretty specialized program that they have to get PFAS samples and get the detection levels so low. And actually the Vista is the lab in California. It's one of the forerunners, and they're very, they're very consistent. So you can depend on what they provide, and they are very accurate in terms of, you can reproduce the concentrations. We've compared them with other labs around, and there are many others coming up to speed and doing very well as well. But it's been a whole host of trying to figure out the correct methods and then modifying the methods. And is this method good for stormwater, but it doesn't work for drinking water? It's a pretty kind of complicated thing.
Any other, hold on, I'm muted. No, I'm not muted. Any other questions for Jean? All right, no. Oh,
I had to get a phone call, but so maybe this was already asked, but where do cities generally get money to take care of the stormwater situation, since it's an unfunded aspect? How do they manage to update the system?
Well, it kind of comes out of the general fund, and it's so. Let's say if Public Works is in the roadway and they're doing, work, and they uncover a stormwater feature that needs repair. Maybe it's been penetrated by another utility or something like that. They basically use their funds, and they repair it or fix it or replace it. Same thing with the wastewater division. If they're in the roadway and they have to move a stormwater pipe, they end up paying for it. So generally, it comes out of everyone else's funds. And that's not the way we'd like to do it, but that's very typical of pretty much every city, as I understand it, in Michigan. The reason for that is that it's been very difficult to get through the legal process a sort of, maybe say, a fee for using stormwater. You can't really use stormwater. That's the other thing. It's not like you turn on the faucet and, you know, your share of, you know, stormwater comes out. It's, you know, everyone kind of shares. When it rains on everybody's property.
Right.
So trying to come up with a plan and how you would get a rate system going. Would you charge for how much impervious surface they have on your property versus the total amount of property? Things like that. It's very complicated, and due to lawsuits, it's not ever been able to become like a legal utility. However, there is hope, and the state is working on a plan where it might be acceptable, you know, through the legal process and not be challenged, so that cities can actually start funding the stormwater plan.
Interesting.
But it's going to be a while. And of course, as you know, anytime you raise the rates of anything for people to pay, it's not always happily accepted.
No, it's not, especially nowadays. Thank you.
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, I have a couple of things we're working on. I don't know if you saw any of our stormwater markers. We had a small program that was successful with volunteers and managed to get out 100 new markers in some key educational areas where people traffic a lot. So that was kind of a fun little topic. We just on our protectyourwater.net site, if you haven't been on there, you should go on there. We have updated our kids corner, and we have completely revamped it and added all kinds of new information because of the COVID situation and online teaching. We thought it'd be best if we gave a lot of resources. So we have resources for different age groups in school, as well as educational materials for the teachers, and it's a nice variety. So take a look at that. And then the other thing that is a pretty big accomplishment, at least for our stormwater permit, the NPDS, we have gotten a grant to work collectively. 11 of us local units of government now have our own webpage, which is housed on protectyourwater.net under stormwater. And what it is for the smaller government entities, Vicksburg, Parchment, Galesburg, KPS, for them to try to meet their state mandated education outreach. It's been very difficult for them, not being funded, not having staff, not having people who this is, you know, not their topic per se. And so this is it's a trial 1 year, which the state has approved of, where we collectively combine our resources to come up with a really good educational outreach program. We are investing a tremendous amount in marketing to get it out to the public. And we just launched it just a couple of weeks ago for the first time. So every month we will roll out a new topic that's mandated by the state for our permits. And it'll be all the same topics that we cover for wellhead protection. It's things like, what can you do, type topics. So you should go out and look at it. It's the stormwater, and it's called KSWG, KSWG for Kalamazoo Stormwater Working Group. And again, so it includes Portage, the Road Commission, the Drain Commissioner's Office, the City of Kalamazoo, Vicksburg, KPS, the Kalamazoo River Watershed is, even though they don't have a permit, they have joined us to at least help and give us some assistance. Trying to think, I feel like I'm missing somebody, but that's the majority of us anyway. So that's a big accomplishment. And then next year, what will happen if this is successful and we can show the state our metrics, meaning that we have reached a lot of people and are more effective than we ever were before, then we will have our state requirements reduced. So that's our goal. Anyway, so that's one really neat thing, and I hope you'll promote it, because the more people know about it, the better the metrics, the better we do with the state. And this will really help the smaller communities. Whereas the Drain Commissioner's Office, the City of Kalamazoo, we meet our requirements, but we're bigger systems and we have the ability to do that. But for these other smaller communities, it's a way of letting them meet their goals and do a much better job at it. So that's one thing. We are also working on El Sabo because we've had a tremendous amount of complaints since COVID started. People are going to all of our open properties. We're getting trash, masks, dumping. We're getting all kinds of things happen in these areas we don't want to happen. Homeless camps, drugs, you name it. On top of that, we've had several complaints of invasive species, especially out at El Sabo, and more recently, people trying to cross the wetlands and getting in the water and falling in, and not good things. So we have a lot of things that we're working on, as well as we are looking at the overall forest management of all of our large land holdings, so that we can go in and get rid of some of these invasive species, if at all, which is tricky because in a wellhead protected zone, you cannot use chemicals unless it's approved by the state. And it's pretty strict, let me tell you. We have some farm area where the farmer is an excellent farmer, has been there for years. He's an organic farmer, but he needed to switch out his crops because he lost his buyer, and we wouldn't even let him use anything to kill the crop. So even though it's a very small amount of chemical and it's a one-time application and the chances of it ever getting into the groundwater is almost impossible, we still can't even do that. So these are really important things for us in terms of wellhead protection that are coming up. And boy, I could go on and on, but I'm probably talking way too much. So I'll leave it at that. But if you could do any one thing for us, check out our stormwater K-Swag site on protectyourwater.net. And if you can, promote it for us, that'd be great.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming this month, Jean. And it'd be awesome if you can, keep up the quarterly reporting. So a few more months, I'll bug Melissa and you come on back for another visit.
Yeah, it's fine. Not a problem.
Great.
All right. Well, I'm going to bug out. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you listening.
All right. Thanks so much, Jean.
All right. Take care.
All right. Any other input there on wellhead aquifer issues? Any feedback there?
I'm happy to hear that they're pretty strict about chemicals near wellheads. That's nice.
Yeah. All right, Sharon, do you want to tell us about your visit to the? I'm sorry. You want to talk about the styrofoam recycling pilot project this Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it's this Saturday. The event's up on the city's Facebook with the details of what's accepted and not accepted. So I recommend anyone looking to drop some off, definitely check out what is accepted so you don't get turned away. I mean, hopefully, yeah, just follow that. And it's from 10 to 1 at Mayor's Riverfront Park. And that is also going to be at the same time as the soft opening of the farmers market for our first event. And if you're looking to volunteer, there's still some openings, so would love to hear from you. It's, yeah, looking for just that time slot of the 3 hours. If you are interested, let me know.
Sharon, who won the mural contest? Are you allowed to say?
I want a couple things to be finalized first, probably, and then yeah,
Okay.
maybe in a meeting or so.
Okay, I'd love to sign up to. You can count me in for volunteer on Saturday. I will email so you've got confirmation there. Is the mural going to be done on on Saturday? What's the, I mean, who was
The
it?
timeline is for it to be
Before?
done before the second event. They
Oh.
are not able to, I mean, yeah, we have a lot of things to do, like getting the right paint and everything together. So the plan is for it to be done by the next one.
All right. Also, Sharon, Sharon paid a visit to the recycling facility in Indiana that City of Kalamazoo uses. I had planned to go, then my wife got her second dose of vaccine and was ill. So I hung back to hang out with kids. And so tell us all about it, Sharon.
Yeah, I guess, what do you want to know? But I guess I can say some things first. Some of the takeaways are make sure you are not throwing in wishful recycling things. So wish cycling, there's some decently clear directions in our view from the curb for what's recyclable, and just make sure you're following that. Plastic bags shouldn't be thrown in with the recycling because they have to shut down the machine 4 times a day, which is stoppage, to unclog the machine that gets all of those caught up in there. They have a overall, so they do the, what I visited was the MRF, so the MRF, Material Recovery Facility, and that's where the contract that the city has for recycling, they have a transfer station on Gambrit Circle, and then they transfer all of it to this MRF, which is in Indiana. So they do roughly a 100-mile radius from there, including all of City of Kalamazoo's recycling. Their goal at the MRF is, so it's hard to get numbers specifically for City of Kalamazoo because the transfer station includes other things in the area from the same recycling company. But I got some numbers kind of in general for the MRF, and their goal is less than 10% diverted away to not be able to be recycled, and they are beating that. They didn't want to give specific numbers of exactly how much, but they said they have been beating that, and they are working towards making that better. So
wait, Sharon, so you're saying that more than 90% of what we are putting into our recycling bins in the city is actually being recycled and used for something?
yes, that is what they were saying. Yep. And so just so you kind of more of a picture, so they're processing it all. There's like a huge pile, and then it goes through many different filters, some magnets for pulling off metals, a lot of manpower of pulling off different things like cardboard and stuff. They only have one optic. I think they were getting another optic sometime soon, but oh man, I can't remember what that one does. But I think the new one is going to be able to read resin codes or something like that, like kind of, yeah, something like that, basically. Yeah, and so what they do there is they are categorizing all of the different recyclables. So definitely still the least recyclable is some of the plastics. Numbers 3 through 7 are not as efficiently recycled in general. So yes, they're being recycled, but I'd say reduce, reuse, recycle is in order for a reason. So that's another takeaway. And there's no exact way to say that the way they're bundling it up, they don't have maybe a specific number for contamination rate, what the consumer would have. So I would say it's still possible that there's some more contamination. We didn't go over this though. I asked them a lot of questions, but I don't think they can have, because there's so many different areas that those things are going to, there's probably some more contamination in that. But he did tell me they get a lot of positive reviews, that they have good, that they do a good job of it. So I'd say probably that's minor, but yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, I was thinking that you ought to brag about that a little bit in the quarterly view from the curb, or maybe put in a little insert with that, and maybe just a single page that people can save that gives them clear directions on what is recyclable and what isn't. It might clean that up a little bit. for
The
them.
view from the curb does a pretty good job. I'm pretty sure I missed mine this quarter, but from everyone I've looked at, I always keep them on my fridge. They do say what's recyclable and what's not recyclable.
Yeah, that wasn't
So-
the point. The point is people kind of just look at the whole thing and they go through it quickly. And I was just thinking if you just had one page, a little insert that once it came around next quarter, you just keep that and you always have it and you put it somewhere else right outside by the recycling bin that you have or in the garage or whatever.
I mean, I have done that
great.
with those, so I'm not sure I don't know if what you're asking is something different. That's also not my category. The city does that. They have a couple people that work on that and I think they do a good job, and do make that pretty clear.
Oh, I agree. There's no doubt that a view from the curb is a terrific handout. Just thinking of a separate insert where people could take that and pin it on the wall right next to the recycling stuff and say, okay, here's this stuff. And that they don't have any excuse that they lost the quarterly or something like that.
Yeah, I think I just cut mine out and put it there, but
Well, that might be too simple for some people.
another thing I just thought of though, so making sure that nothing that you're trying to recycle is too small if possible. So one example is aluminum foil is recyclable. Make sure it's, not full of food. But if you are balling up your aluminum foil, just like make sure it's like the size of a baseball, at least I'd say, before you actually throw it in there. So I just have a ball that I'm growing from takeout because I don't buy aluminum foil, but yeah, just make sure it's a big enough ball and then
How much
that's
of, like-
more recyclable.
How much of food and stuff do they clean off of there? Or do
So
they clean it off at all?
I saw zero cleaning off, and contamination is one of the biggest problems that they have in general. I was going to ask about food contamination more specifically. They didn't say, but that would be what I would think is the biggest thing that kind of gets through because there's no I saw zero washing process for that, and I don't think that's planned in as part of the process.
Did they let you take any photos?
Oh yeah, I took a bunch of photos and videos.
I'll have to look at some of those.
Yeah, if you want to send some of those, or you can just upload them to the shared drive.
Yeah, that's a lot. I hope that it is possible to do that because I was trying to just email myself little clips, and that was hard. But maybe dragging it into the drive will be easier. So I will try.
Cool.
I was planning because I did lots of little clips, so I was kind of planning on trying to edit it together into one flowing process that you could see. But this is just for fun for me, so I'm not promising that.
That's awesome. What about, we have an ongoing argument. Well, it's not an argument, it's a conversation in our house about plastic milk containers, gallon milk containers. My understanding is those are not recyclable, even if you rinse them out.
Well, I don't specifically know that. I don't consume dairy milk anymore.
Okay.
I know the new bottle bill that they're trying to expand, the only beverage bottle that's not included in the expansion of that, if that passes, would be milk cartons. But now I'm wondering if it's milk bottles and cartons. Definitely not cartons in general, but.
Okay. Well,
I have a question comment. And maybe it does go into view from the curb, but it's news to me, the things that you've told us about this center. I don't know if I've missed an article in View from the Curb in the past about how this giant place in Indiana does this, and especially that 90% of what we recycle gets recycled, I think is something that would really motivate people to put more recyclables in the recycles. So somehow it would be great if that got out to the public a little more.
Yeah, so I agree. I would like to, in the subgroup waste committee, go over that a little bit more. And I think I have some follow-up questions probably for the tour. And I was also, I'm planning to go on a tour of the transfer facilities so that I have even more of a complete picture of how it works. Sometime in the next couple weeks, maybe during a lunch break is my plan. So the one representative from Republic was there. The one of the people that is in charge of the view from the curb was there, and then I was there. So that is something that I would like to continue to dive into. And I agree that people would probably appreciate it a lot more knowing those success rates. So.
All right, any other questions for Sharon on the recycling facility visit? Okie dokie, hearing none. Ian, did you have any updates on the Palisades nuclear facility issue?
Updates, no, but I just wanted to read through, get through a couple of comments from a press release that was shared to us and the ECC 2 months ago. So I'll be really brief about it because it's publicly available. But it's kind of one of those issues where the chances of the worst happening are fairly low from what I read, but the consequences from them happening are pretty serious. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there on the public record for whoever's watching and part of our agendas. So just really the top level details. There's a nonprofit organization called Beyond Nuclear, and alongside a couple coalition members, they released a press statement based on the Palisades nuclear power plant in Covert, Michigan, which is just, you can see it from the beach in South Haven, basically. And so I think they would be considered a watchdog group, but their whole goal as an organization is no nuclear power, no nuclear weapons. And I think that's worth noting just based on the rest of their position. So basically they're talking about Entergy Nuclear, which owns Palisades, has a contract with another company called Holtec International that is going to be decommissioning the nuclear plant in the next decade or so. And they've begun, and basically Beyond Nuclear has a lot of problems with Holtec and their record. They talked about the company's record and another nuclear plant that was part of the same deal up near Charlevoix, and some issues they've had up there. The main example was part of the area has been deemed free for use. So like the former nuclear plant grounds, certain parts of it have been, they call it unrestricted use, so there's no problem in using it. But Beyond Nuclear claims that there's some cracked casks. And what that is nuclear material has a long period in which it's radioactive. Like we're talking hundreds of years for some of it. So it needs to be stored in basically like a concrete Lego brick, essentially. And there's claims that one of the ones in Charlevoix is cracked and also possibly not movable because of the way it was done. And so between concerns like that, and they claim that Consumers Energy and DTE Energy have been using the state's decommissioning trust fund, which is supposed to pay for decommissioning power plants. They claim that it's been used for like the wrong thing, so that even the response to a possible disaster is already underfunded by their estimate. And so just quickly on the risks, the main things that they're thinking about is contamination of Lake Michigan with nuclear material, whether that's because with lake levels, many people know last year, like houses were falling in to the lake in South Haven, and the nuclear plant is at risk of the same exposure. And Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes provides drinking water for 16 million people in the region. And part of the decommissioning process, in addition to making these Lego bricks that are supposed to stay on property sometimes for a long period of time, they're concerned about the moving process as well, because the current plan is to throw some of those on a barge and bring them up to Muskegon, where they'll then be processed or taken to another place that I'll get to in just a sec. But they're concerned that you're putting a bunch of nuclear material on a boat on Lake Michigan, boats sink sometimes, and that's a huge risk. And then the final note, there's kind of an environmental racism potential aspect to this, because most nuclear material right now in the US is being disposed at in a place in New Mexico, which is basically in the desert mountains. But this territory is either in or near Native American owned lands, and the record for storage there is also challenging. So in summation, to just wrap it up, people can read more if they want beyondnuclear.org. I'm not really endorsing anything they said, but I think it's just worth lifting up. And if you're interested in either nuclear energy specifically or zero carbon energy, because there's the other challenge that we're actually turning off one of our biggest zero carbon emitting power plants, but it's also got a billion other problems. It's just a complicated issue. If you're interested in it, more info's online. Just wanted to share it with the committee. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I guess we'll just kind of keep an eye on that. That's always very slow moving process. And even though the nuclear facility is not in the city of Kalamazoo, anytime you're talking about nuclear material, it doesn't just affect one small area. So keep an eye on that. Next item, I'm sorry, were there any questions for Ian? All right. Moving on to, so I emailed with Monica Brothers, our local Eagle air quality agent, to see if there were any updates on the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services air quality study, report, data review, what have you. And I haven't heard any updates there. And the last time I communicated with with Mr. Farrell from MDHHS, he was not able to give me a timeline on that. So, but we'll keep an eye on that one too. All right, Dr. Walter. Can we also call you Professor Walter? Have you taught too at the?
No, just call me Gail, for Christ's sakes.
Well, Dr. Gail then.
Okay.
Dr. Professor.
Dr.
No,
Dr.
I'm not
Professor
a professor.
Gail.
Now I want to teach. I hate that. No, I'm not a professor.
Okay. All right. So Gail just sent me an updated draft of her kind of brief white paper on triple E spraying, the chemical that is used in that. I got that. I think I got that yesterday. So here's my suggestion, Gail. Please, give us an update. Let us know what the updates are. But I think that we should. I'll send that out after the meeting tonight. Give everybody a chance to review it, and then next month, I think we should vote on maybe approving to figure out how to share that document with, either post it on the city website, the tab for ECC, and then also sharing it with the county, the HVAC committee, not HVAC, health, environmental health, and the county's ECC basically, and the Portage Environmental Council, to see if they would, because we've had some conversation around that issue. I've had some conversation with Vern Johnson from the county and with the Portage Environmental Committee to kind of have, see if it's possible to have kind of common messaging around that issue of the spraying. So what were the updates, Gail, to that paper?
The only update that I made was really to include information from the 2020 season. So in the first iteration of this paper that I did, I included information from the 2019 season, how many human cases of EEE, what was the survival rate, how many animal cases, and then, how many acres were sprayed and for treatment with aerial spraying. And that there were no side effects. There was, evaluating of emergency visits and everything else, that there were no adverse effects from that. And so I basically did the same for 2020 season. I put how many animal cases, how many human cases, how many acres were sprayed, and that there were no effects. So that was the only update that I did, was just to provide information from those 2 years. And of course, because of COVID, there wasn't any surveillance of the mosquito population and stuff. That was, pretty limited. So I didn't make an attempt to add any of that. So, and I would think too, it certainly would need to be vetted by, any of the, municipalities, Portage or Kalamazoo, and the health department. This is just something I pull together. And so I wouldn't want to presume that it's, it was endorsed or that it represented the viewpoints of, either city or the health department. So I would be pretty, pretty circumspect about that and cautious. And, they would really need to decide if they chose to make that publicly available.
Yeah, would you be comfortable with me sharing the current draft of that paper with the county and Portage?
No, that would be fine. For them to look at and before it's distributed, widely.
Okay.
I want it to be blessed and endorsed by the appropriate, people in positions, to make those decisions.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions? Any questions for Gail about that? All right, hearing none. So are you good with that, Gail? I'll send it out. We can all, everybody that wants to give it a read can do so, and then we'll, have a vote next week about sending it out and seeing if we can post it anywhere. I think it's a great paper. It's you reviewed all the relevant literature. That's I think that's about the most that we can. Also, it's not like, the state kind of changed the rules the last time they did the spraying, so there wasn't really the option for the opt-out. I think the purpose at this point now would just be to, again, just allay people's fears of what that, the potential harmful effects of that chemical.
Right. It's just it's just for informational purposes only, and people can dig in and you can always find published wherever they're published points of view that support your own opinion, and so not everybody may agree with this, but hopefully it's pretty unbiased.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Gail. Last piece of unfinished business. We heard from citizens Tina McClinton and Richard Stewart last couple of meetings about the possibility of development between Lake Street and Stockbridge. And some of you have expressed interest in going out to take a look at that property. I communicated with Tina, and she is available I know we've got the styrofoam recycling project, but I'm not sure how many of you are planning to go, but she is available afternoon this Saturday after 12. So I'm seeing if we can kind of,
Well, didn't you just volunteer for Saturday? Also, I would go if we planned it after the event,
that,
which
right.
It ends at 1. So.
Right, but is there going to be like cleanup and stuff afterwards, or?
Yeah, I was planning a certain amount of cleanup, so I mean,
well,
I would assume no longer
that,
than a half hour.
Yeah, I think that her schedule is pretty well set. I think she kind of works the same schedule every week. So what if we shot for the following Saturday? Is that May 1st?
That's
the garlic mustard
day. Could we do it at, like, how late is she available in the afternoon? Could we do it at 2 o'clock?
I think so. I think she just said afternoon. I think she like works the morning shift on Saturdays. So
I think
You're
2
only
o'clock
gonna
would be
get
safe.
crazier as May goes on.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
So 2 p.m. on May 1st, I will communicate with Tina and see if that works.
No. April 24th.
Oh,
Well, I'm bummed because I'm going to be out of town on the 24th, so I won't be able to go.
yeah, I saw Gail shaking her head. That's why I said May 1st.
Well, May 1st is the garlic mustard event.
Yeah.
At that very time.
Oh, right.
Same with the 8th.
Same with the 8th. Now, that doesn't mean it absolutely excludes that.
Right.
Is that the only day she can do that? Because she works on the weekdays?
Yeah, I think she kind of works in the evenings. I don't know. How about this? I will email with her again and collect like 3 or 4 times and dates and throw it out to everybody. And however, the most people that can make it to that particular time and date, we can plan it for that.
Good.
Okay.
I prefer sooner than later personally. And I mean, Asylum Lake has a pretty deep bench of volunteers, and their house is literally underwater. So
sorry about that, Ian. It's not happening. That's the problem.
Well,
I mean,
here's the thing.
Their house is flooding every evening. That's why I want to get to it.
Oh,
I mean,
agree.
not every evening, but like yearly, it sounds like. So I'd like to go sooner.
Yeah, I very much want to see that piece of property too. I used to work in that neighborhood and sorry about the outburst, but we are not getting dozens of people coming
compared to the dozen of us on the ECC was my point. Anyway.
Not happening.
Aaron. I'll just say that. Let's just do that.
So I'll send out some possible dates and we'll try to get that scheduled up. In terms of actual development on that property, I don't think that it's likely that development is going to happen anytime soon. So the way that it was described to me is that there's a bidding process, and that there were, I don't know, like dozens of bids around the state for this particular pot of money to build mixed use housing that would also serve people with lower income, and that they only give out like 3 or 4 of them, and the likelihood of that project actually getting the green light this year is pretty low. So I don't think that the construction project is likely to get started anytime soon. I would love I haven't taken a look at that website. I need to look back there. But when we looked at the site plan, although if it doesn't get approved, I think the site plan has to go back through the approval process again. So the site plan might change. But I think it would be very useful for anybody that goes out to visit, because I've been out to look at it already. I think it would be very useful to try to review those site plans somehow and be able to kind of eyeball it while you're out there, if there's any way to do that, to see how much space is actually going to be taken up.
Where would we get those? Where would we get access to those?
That is a good question. How did we see it last time? I can't remember if it's like on the Lift Up. Isn't it? It's the Lift Up Foundation, isn't it?
Oh, just the Lift Foundation.
Lift Foundation. Thank you, Jean. And I can't remember if the site plans were right on.
I mean, I think it's worth pointing out that it's kind of a both and issue. Like I'm pretty sure my understanding of the issue is they want to keep the green space, which is a bonus. But the thing that I keep hearing in the 2 years that we've been talking with Tina, at least, that there's the flooding is the thing like that we need to talk about too a little bit. Just if nothing else, just to put the gas on the sustainability plan, because that's the only thing that's going to address the flooding.
Right.
Just to get like a good case study from visiting her neighborhood.
Right.
Okay. All right. So I will send that scheduling information out. I've got an asterisk by it drawn in pencil here to help me remember.
Aaron, I think that James Baker has addressed these issues with Ms. McClinton and with Richard.
Yep. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of communication there, I think. But I know they're they don't want it built in their backyard, which is understandable. But in terms of flooding, my understanding is that what we talked about at the top of the meeting with this large infrastructure project that Director Baker is trying to get through. That's really going to be what's going to mitigate flooding, not construction on a couple of city blocks. That's not going to flooding happens over a much larger area. So, all right. So look for those emails for scheduling. Moving on to new business, I received an email from a citizen with a couple of concerns. The first concern was again generally about litter. I think that he kind of referred to Vine, and I think maybe the homeless encampment, which was right by the ballpark, wasn't it? By the Rivers Merefront Park. Is that where the last kind of bigger one was? Just generally concerned about what are we going to do to clean that up or control it going forward.
The city cleaned out 6 cubic tons of garbage. I'm sorry, I may be misspeaking there, but the city has cleaned that area.
Okay. It's not all the way clean. There's definitely a lot of debris. They didn't do a incredibly thorough job.
Okay. Well, and I think that's a good, a good topic for us to talk about in the subcommittee that we're talking about. So we'll get to that later in the meeting. The other concern that the emailer brought up was urban tree cover, and so I just wanted to hit those 2 points, and then we'll get to them again in subcommittee reports here. And then the other order of new business tonight is that we've got 2 resignations, it sounds like. Scott Schmidt emailed a few weeks ago. Scott, sounds like you landed a new job, and where'd you say you're moving again?
Yeah, I'll be moving to upstate New York. Okay. So won't be local anymore.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Where are you moving to, Scott?
It's still to be determined, but outside the Albany area, that region. So still it's like still too early to actually for people to bite when you want to apply to rent a place, but it's still like close enough that you want to find a place to settle on, right? To move to, but yeah, Albany area.
Well, it's been great having you on the committee. I'm going to really miss your input and your data manipulation or handling.
Well, thanks.
Maybe that's a better way to do it.
Well, thanks. So I'll still be, we won't move till the end of June. So I'll still be coming to meetings till then.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, I appreciate your time on the committee. So did you want to kind of do your official resignation here, Scott?
Yeah, what does that entail?
I don't know. There's like a funny hat and you got to kind of turn around 3 times and.
Sounds like we don't need to for 2 months, or.
Well, I think the opening up the slot is kind of the priority, right? So somebody else can join. Yeah. Or we have a waiting list.
We do, yeah. I've got 3. We got Dr. Mellowish, who's kind of next in line, as we had discussed last year, and then I've got 3 other applications in the shared drive, and then in addition to Scott, Dr. Beasley, you said you're also you found a new place, but the place is in Portage,
outside of city limits.
Okay. All right. So we've got, so again, Jason, thanks for, your service on the ECC for the last few months. And like we talked about earlier, there's plenty of opportunities to volunteered and contribute in Portage. Portage is a tree city. I don't know if you've seen the signs, so.
Yeah, we got an inside man in the Portage City Environmental Council now, hopefully.
Yeah, that's right. So that is 2 official resignations tonight. I will pass that in an email to Melissa, and she'll pass it to city staff. And then that will be, and at next month's meeting, Dr. Mellowish will be able to vote on your membership. And then I also will contact the other 3 applications that I've got right now and invite those folks to the next meeting, and see about voting on them as one of them as new member. If they can't meet next month, I might give it a couple of months to give them time to schedule stuff. So I guess I'll kind of see how it goes there. Does that sound good with everybody?
Yes, I wrapped my official gavel of approval.
Okay. All right, sounds good.
Well, so will Scott stay on the committee until his departure?
Yeah, for sure. You're welcome to stay on as a associate member. You're a valued member, like Dr. Walter mentioned, with all the data and stuff you've done with the the hydrogen sulfide. That big long graph was great to see that. So
Yeah, no, I'm happy to keep attending.
okay,
Even if I can't vote, it's fine.
cool. Sounds good. All right, moving on to subcommittee reports. Bobby was not able to make it. And I don't really have any other updates on the NFP. He didn't really email me any updates, so I'm not sure where they're at in that process of expanding the overlay map. Did anybody else heard about that?
I tried to find the meeting because I had it down for last week, and as far as I could tell, they've moved the meeting to the 4th Thursday of the month. So that would be next week.
Oh, okay.
That's what I got from the website.
Okay.
Probably need to recheck it.
Air and water quality subcommittee. So myself and Ian and Wayne Bond met with doctor and former colleague of everybody's names are slipping my mind now. Who was the doctor that we spoke with last month, Ian?
Yeah, sorry. I
Dr.
have my notes in front of me. I'm thank you. Yes.
Bronner. Yep. And he had worked with the doctor that we heard from back in the fall, who had written a book on environmental racism. So I think my takeaway from our discussion with Dr. Bronner was that he was going to try to talk with some of his colleagues at the medical school at Western and try to track down some more hard data on us as far as kind of epidemiology stuff, like what it looks like, because we saw the one map about asthma rates by zip code, but it was a pretty high level data review, and so he was going to try to find us some more in-depth data that would kind of help us, in addition to the MDHHS study that we're hoping to see soon, that will tell us about the air quality, and if it reaches that threshold of danger to health. I think in addition to seeing that, it would be helpful to see what the actual health outcomes are in those areas. So we're still kind of waiting on that. Ian, did you have anything else? Any other takeaways from that meeting?
No, I think that covers it. I think we were hampered by some of the easy to find data sets are just like you said, just too macro and don't get down to even the zip level, which is still not perfect, but yeah, what we're looking for that area.
Okay. All right, Gail, wildlife and natural resource protection. Any updates there?
Yeah, so I can update you on a couple of things. One is the ad hoc deer committee that has been formed with representation from about 15 different neighborhoods in the city, as well as other pertinent organizations like Stewards of Kleinstock, and along with representatives of city staff. So there's been a couple of meetings. The last one was earlier this week, and there was a presentation given by one of our local DNR biologists on with some basic information on urban deer. I was hoping he would be have a little bit more current and updated information and statistics from other communities and specific actions that they may have taken, but the presentation was much more general than that. So the goal of the ad hoc committee is to gather information from residents of the city on their attitudes and perceptions of deer. And so a survey is being put together, and that will be distributed. I'm not sure how it's going to be distributed, but distributed to people who choose to fill out the survey. And then, talking about it, and basically there's no funding for this particular project, but, talking about, potential for collaboration with folks at Western, maybe some graduate students looking at possible monitoring or surveys to try to get an estimate of deer population. And, so there's a lot of ideas that are kind of up in the works. And Dr. Meluish was present at this meeting too, so he may have some other information that he wants to share that I've missed.
Well, just to add a little more specificity to that, there was a study done by a couple of students from K College last year, and they found the concentrations were fairly high in the Oakland Drive, Winchell neighborhood, and not nearly as high in the other areas. It's kind of a rough study though, and in particular, how you study these things. This Don Poppy? Yeah, Don Poppy said that traditionally the best way to do it is with a fixed wing airplane flying over with infrared cameras in the winter when the leaves are off the trees and snow is on the ground. And it's fairly accurate, but it's really expensive. It's about $1,000 an hour. And you have to do it on a fairly regular basis to see if any deer herd management that you're doing is having an effect and how much, et cetera. So we're looking at, one of the other members of the committee brought up some information about using a drone and infrared cameras to do the same thing at a much cheaper rate. And we're thinking maybe the Western Flying Department or Physics Department, or whoever does that, and Biology Department might want to collaborate and give some projects to students to figure out how to do that, which might be a real good way going forward to be able to monitor the number of deer. And so that's just in addition to what Gail's already said.
All right, any questions or comments about the newly formed deer management group? All right. Thanks for the update, Gail and Dr. Meluish. And what's next here? Okay, so we were talking about getting together kind of a new group to discuss litter. and recycling, but really they're kind of two separate issues. So Sharon, you had mentioned that Wayne would be, because I've got Wayne's name on here too, that he would have some more availability coming up, I think after the semester ends, I assume, because he was working
Yeah,
on
he
it
said May.
in May. Okay. So how do you want to do that? Do you want to send out kind of like how I'm doing for, to go visit the Lake Street property? Do you want to send out some possible days and times to put our heads together for a first meeting?
Yeah, I think I was getting a draft together for a committee to get people's general availability, I think. And then I guess we didn't say otherwise, so I guess I assumed we were waiting till May, which isn't super far away anymore. So
Yeah. Okay. So should we just kind of keep an eye out for that email?
sure. It's just going to be to the people that are listed there. If anyone else wanted to be added, then definitely say something.
Yeah, did anybody else want to, I think that kind of what we were thinking about here was not necessarily a subcommittee that meets every month and is like a forever ongoing thing, but maybe more like a handful of meetings, at least at the beginning, to kind of brainstorm and review data and see what we can do, see what's already being done, see what we can improve on, and see what new stuff we could possibly do to address these ongoing litter issues. Did anybody else want to get in on, at least I don't know how many meetings, a handful of meetings initially? Going once, going twice. Sharon provides free beverages. She doesn't. It will be all via Zoom and just, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. You can put me on there too, Sharon, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I will just have some throw my 2 cents in there too. Ian, have you had a chance to visit the Planning Commission?
They haven't had a meeting since our last one, with the exception of one that is probably just wrapping up right now, which is a special session that they host, I think, annually for new members, because they have a pretty strict and specific process. Nothing to report right now.
Okay. Thank you, Ian. All right, Gail, the tree committee.
Okay, the tree committee actually did meet this month. It has not met on a regular basis. So there were a couple of items of business that were discussed involving tree removals in a couple of different locations, small numbers of trees in the curb lawn at the new Edison School. And it looks like, although this is not part of the city trees, that particular lot has got some beautiful old mature trees that I believe are going to come down. But there were a couple of kind of trees in the curb lawn that needed to be removed, and those will be removed, and will be twice as many trees will be planted somewhere in the curb lawn nearby. 3 little trees will be taken down on East Main Street that are currently in the cement, and there will, or maybe it's just two by Main Street East, and then again 4 trees will be planted to replace those removals. And then a big one is on Parkview Avenue between, let me think of what the cross streets are, Broadway and Tasman. There is going to be a pedestrian sidewalk and crossing put in. Parkview is, of course, gotten to be an incredibly busy road and pretty difficult to cross and to walk along. And so the trees that are on the, let me think, that's going west, the north side of the road in that stretch, for the most part, are going to come out in order to be able to redo to create a sidewalk and to do a retaining wall and to create a way to cross Parkview. So it'd be one of those crossing islands. So, and then there's new trees that are going to be going in a area that is being redeveloped on the corner of Balch Avenue and Westnedge. So, you know, that's all. There was no discussion. It was not even on the agenda of revising the tree ordinance. And I know that was something that Aaron had mentioned to the citizen that had contacted the ECC. So that's not even on the agenda. So I have nothing I can address with that. So any questions?
Well, yeah, we got a question about the tree committee and, you know, what the process was for replacing trees that have been taken down. I think just generally the urban tree canopy, and I didn't communicate, I think, as well as I could have with the guy. I am personally advocating, I think, that we should have a updated citywide tree ordinance as part of the sustainability and climate action plan. So I'm not sure how we go about getting that on the agenda, Gail, but I don't know if that's maybe something you can bring up at the next meeting. Because like I said, they just did a similar thing in Portage. So I'm not sure if the rest of the committee members are familiar with that.
Is there a tree ordinance in Portage?
There is, yeah. They just updated it, I think, last summer.
Huh, I'd be interested in seeing that. Do you know how we would get access to it? Is it?
Yeah, I'm sure it's like on the city website, but I can, I'll message the Portage people to see if we can get that language, and I'll send it on to you.
Yeah, just because I mean, I personally would like to see the tree ordinance revised. I mean, right now there is nothing in the tree ordinance that addresses replacement ratios or you know, timeliness of replacement of trees. You know, it more addresses, you know, safety. You know, if there's, you know, damaged trees or you know, trees that need to come down, and you know what citizens can and cannot do to the trees. You know, but there's nothing, and I know that it would actually be important to coordinate it with the sustainability. So when the city sustainability plan gets finalized, then the tree ordinance could be consistent with that. So they almost, you know, they really need to reference one another. Because I think that the city sustainability plan that Jamie was talking about has got an ideal, you know, a tree canopy cover that is, you know, what they're aiming for as part of that plan. And so that could be reflected in the tree ordinance when the sustainability plan is approved.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think one of the key issues is where do you plant? If you cut a tree down, great. Now where are you gonna, especially if it's a tree on a curb, because it's all we can talk about is city-owned property. So that a lot of times it's just curb strips, which is not ideal, not a great place to plant a tree because it's, you know, surrounded almost entirely by sidewalk and asphalt, and that's, you know, you don't get enough water down there. So big question is where do we plant these trees, you know? So I think that's kind of part of the discussion.
Right, and that is a discussion that comes up, you know, just at this last tree committee meeting of, you know, where, okay, so, you know, the trees that are coming out on East Main, it's like, you know, so 4 more will be planted, and the forester's like, okay, you know, I've got to think about it. You know, I've got to find a place, you know, where they could survive, hopefully thrive. But yeah, you're right. It is a dilemma, because you want the tree canopy in the curb lawn and in the city, and with the development that we have, you know, takes up a lot of it. And there's regulations about how close to the intersection, and you know, all kinds of safety regulations that allow trees to be planted or not planted in certain locations.
Rob, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a couple of quick ones if there was time.
Yeah, please.
Could I interject really quick? I am sorry. I just want to mention there is a hard stop coming up in about 25 minutes. There's the planning commission meeting right after yours. So you have about 25 minutes remaining for this meeting, as well as I do have 2 citizens' comments for when we get to that point. But I just wanted to bring that, sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to bring that up.
Great, thanks, Andy. And we're nearing the end here. We've only got a couple more subcommittees to tick through. Let's take Rob's comment and then listen to citizen comments. So we'll have hopefully time to respond if they're still kind of watching online. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, just real quick. I was noticing a lot of the trees that had been cut down last year, I mean, standard height, just kind of cut down to ground level and everything. Is there a rule or regulation saying what height they are trimmed to if the stump is not going to be removed?
Yeah, I think in the tree ordinance that there is some, I'm sort of looking at it now, but I think that there are some, there's certainly spacing, and there is information about trimming for line clearances for you know, utilities, and you know, and that kind of thing. And you know, that might be part of what the city needs to update as well. You know, so the top trimming, side trimming, over trimming, it gives that in feet.
Yeah, I understand like the guidance for overhead wires and not obstructing sidewalks and everything, but when they cut a tree down, when they cut it down to ground level, that almost seems useless if they're not removing it completely. I mean, a lot of times I've tripped over it almost as much just by feet, when it makes more sense, I think, if they left it at like table height or something. You might be able to set something down on it or sit on it or something. Just if there's guidance, I'll try and look it up, or if you're able to send it to me, I'd appreciate it. But
yeah, no, there is no guidance about that. And I think that the standard approach is that they take it down to ground, and then they will come back at some point in time and grind the stump. But they usually do that, like they'll do it all together. They're not going to come back and do one stump at a time, just like they're not going to come back and plant one tree at a time. They'll do it as it's like, okay, this is like stump grinding week, you know, and they'll go around with the stump grinder. But there is nothing in the ordinance, and I doubt that they would leave anything that was, you know, at table height or chest height, because I think that would also present a hazard in the curb lawn.
okay, thanks. Yeah, that pretty much answers it. And then just a quick follow-up, if there was any talk of any plans for Arbor Day next week.
Not that I'm aware of, no. There might be something from the city, but nothing that was brought up in the tree committee.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thanks, Rob. Andy, yeah, if we've got some citizen comments, let's go ahead and listen to those now.
Okay, I will need you to stop sharing your screen for a moment, since it is technically a screen share, even though it's just audio. Thank you.
Yep.
One moment.
Hi, I am from Kalamazoo, Michigan. I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live on Lake Street. I am calling because of you were talking about the flooding. Thank you. I hope somebody tries to do something, because I still, every time it rains, we still flood. It still fills up in the streets, comes out the storm drains, backs up the sewers, it backs up in our homes. It comes through my manhole cover where my sub pump is, where the groundwater is. It also comes through the drain in my basement. I don't have water in front of my house. I have a little green space, one little green space left in Southtown neighborhood. It's right next to my house. We have falcons, we have foxes, we have all kinds of little animals. It's just a little nature there. We have deer. We've seen a coyote, but it left. We have skunks. We have tons and tons of woodpeckers. We have wetlands. It's 60% wetlands, 40% floodplain, and it helps my home with flooding. Helps everybody right here in these 5 little houses. We don't get water in front of our house. It comes up through our drains and our basements. It does the same thing on Stockbridge. Some neighbors I know, they have the same problem. Comes right up through the drain in their basement, but they don't have water in front of their house. I mean, it does it all in this area. Something needs to be done about it. It's really tiring of worrying about whether you're going to be able to get out your home when it rains. The infrastructure is so bad over here. Either they're connected together, I don't know what, but I've been trying to save the green space next to my house for 2 years now. It helps me with flooding. It absorbs water like a sponge. It has old trees. It has lots of nature, and it's a little piece of country in the city. Thank you. Bye.
My name is Richard Stewart. I'm a resident of the city and reside in the Southtown neighborhood. I would like to attend the board's scheduled visit to Lake Street in Stockbridge, along with a few of the concerned residents in the area. I can be reached. The city planner has all my contact information, but I would like to know in advance so we can schedule a group to meet with you and give you a tour of our concerns rather than be dismissed. We'd like to be a part of this visit so we can meet you face to face and show you our concerns. Otherwise, the visit will be absent public input from the immediate residents, those in the proximity. Thank you.
And that is all of the comment at this time.
Great, thanks, Andy. So I have emailed with Tina. I've got Richard's phone number. I will give him a call and get his email and put him on that communication too. All right, just a couple minutes left here. Let me reshare. All right, where were we? Okay, tree committee, Asylum Lake Policy Management Council. Sharon, I know we've got the garlic mustard poll coming up. Anything else?
I can't remember when. I think it was since the last meeting, but they did do the controlled burn as planned for some management. And yep, obviously the pool's coming up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I took a walk through there myself and saw that little burn, saw where those beavers have been busy working on that little strip of land out there. They are literally busy beavers. Parks and Rec, Rob. It looks like Rob has a sidekick. Okay.
Yeah, I almost made it through the meeting, but yes, Parks and Rec went well. I think the most imminent thing is tomorrow they've selected 5 parks around town to do a cleanup. Sorry.
Okay.
They are staging some trash bags for residents to pick up. You can find them online. I believe they want to say that it starts at 8 a.m., but it's pretty much throughout the day or until bags run out. And if your park is not sponsored, then you are more than welcome to bring your own and just kind of take before and after pictures.
When are those cleanups?
Tomorrow at I believe it was Upjohn, Millam, and a couple others, but 8 a.m. is kind of when the majority of people are encouraged to go. But if you're there and you see bags left, they're encouraging you to pick up and just send pictures to their site.
Okay.
Do you have the other ones by chance?
The other part.
Just real quick.
John Park.
It was Millam, Spring Valley, Upjohn, Blanche, and Lacrone.
So kind of a lot of the bigger ones.
I'll be at Lacrone at 7 a.m. if anybody wants to join me.
Nice. It's one of my kids' favorites. Their playground is pretty nice.
Yeah, it is. Julie Rogers and I will be there at 7. So.
Thank
and
you.
then Friday, I'm with a group that cleans up MLK Park. So.
What time is that?
That's at 1.
1 o'clock on Friday. Okay.
Man, we got all these cleanups. How do we have any litter out there?
I know.
There was a big mention of concern about MLK Park. I think it was really hitting home for a lot of people that I think that's going to be a main focus throughout the summer with some of the homeless that resided there this winter. So I think that will be an ongoing issue for them.
Yeah, I was there last week for a cleanup, and yeah, it is. So every other week we usually make sure that the litter's gone. We tend the beds. The city does have a great plan for adding trees to the park to keep away the view of the train tracks and so on. So yeah, it's there's a good plan for a lot of the parks actually.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Rob. We already heard from Jean Talanda. Scott, do you have any communication with the Kalamazoo River Watershed Council?
Normally they send out a newsletter, but they haven't recently, so I don't have an update.
Okay. And then the last item here is odor task force. I tried to make that last meeting. It's during my plan period at work, but my work it often doesn't, like if I've got an hour where the kids don't really care about what my schedule is. So if there are kids that need something from me at that time at work, I'm doing that. So, but I did read through the notes. The city and Graphic Packaging are both putting in additional odor monitoring stations to add to that good baseline data. And representatives from the EnviroSuite company that sells the monitoring equipment and the database that's used to look at the results of it. We're on site at Graphic Packaging this past month to help them with overall issues of getting the database working and bad power issues with the like we had talked about, where the power goes off and then you get this kind of big blip when that power comes back on. There were a lot of other data points of processes that Graphic Packaging has online, and all the carbon scrubbers and all the different capital improvements. There's building projects going on at the water reclamation plant to get all the odor monitoring and odor mitigating stuff going. Graphic Packaging was required to provide an odor mitigation plan based on the odor study that they did back in the fall. They presented a plan. Eagle has handed it back to them and I think asked for some changes. So my last communication with Eagle was that we were waiting on basically a second draft of an odor mitigation plan from Graphic Packaging. And I think it'll be remain to be seen as the weather starts to heat up here at some point. You know, the effects on the ground. I mean, there have been some changes. We still haven't, you know, it's still going to be a year, I think another couple of years till that junction changer is switched out, and that'll be a big change. But even with some of the processing changes and monitoring that both parties are doing, I don't know, we'll have to stick our nose up in the air this summer when it gets hot, and it that smell tends to start cooking around town to, you know, and to see how many citizen complaints end up on Monica Brothers' desk this summer. So hopefully that'll continue to move forward. Okie dokie, I think we have reached the end of our meeting, 6:18, and it looks like we need to clear out of here for the Planning Commission. Any other comments, questions for the good of the order? I know Commissioner Hess, you mentioned that you presented a proclamation for Earth Day on Monday.
I did. I could send you a copy if you'd like that.
That'd be great. And I can share it with everybody, and then we'll share it in the ECC share drive, commemorate it, share it for all time, save it for all time.
Absolutely. It'll go on the cloud.
Yeah, yes. All right. Any other comments or questions?
I've got a quick question if Rob is still on the line for Parks and Recs. I was just kind of curious whether that the discussion came up at the Parks and Recs meeting about the bike path through Glen Park, if that was on the agenda and what they did with it.
I do have to apologize to you. I had it written down, but I took the wrong notebook when I was sitting down on that one, so I didn't have it in front of me when they asked me. But I can definitely follow up on that question for sure.
Okay, thanks.
If I was you, Rob, I would blame that on your daughter.
Yeah, I would. I'm easily distracted, I guess.
Okay, that's all right. All right, that brings us to an end. We are adjourned, and I will see everybody back next month.
All righty, see ya.
Bye.
Thanks, Aaron. Bye-bye.
Yep.